think strategy decks are like hypothesis, but working software is really evidence. Engineering is not the bottleneck anymore. Product thinking matters really more than ever. I believe Agile is going to be dead.
This is the Future of the Future show. I am your host, Mateo Berbejicio. For years, software was treated as a support function, something you built after strategy was decided. But that model is breaking. Today, the companies that win are the ones that were building is the strategy, where the ability to rapidly design, test, and ship products defines not just execution but direction. And now with AI, that shift is accelerating. If software used to be constrained by time, cost, and talent, those constraints are collapsing. So new questions emerge. If we can build anything faster than ever, what actually matters? What becomes scarce? How do organizations need to rethink how they operate when the creation itself is no longer the bottleneck? That's exactly what we are unpacking today, from the changing role of engineers to whether product design and engineering are finally converging, to whether frameworks like Agile still make sense in a world of near instant iteration. To help us navigate this, we're joined by Brian Fletcher, an experienced technology leader who has spent over a decade building digital products across agencies and now, as a co-founder and fractional CTO, helping companies rethink how they build and scale technology teams in an AI-first world. Brian has a unique vantage point at the intersection of engineering, product, and business strategy, and today he helps organizations move from building software to truly becoming software-driven businesses. Brian, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Mateo. Great to be here.
Brian, you've spent decades building digital products and agencies, and not with FM now. You talk about build as a strategy. What changed, and when did software stop being a function and become the core of the business strategy?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Mateo. And I think you hit on it a little bit up front, right? The effort of building software is really changed dramatically in the last, I want to say, 18 months. And what we're seeing is that the effort to build has really been reduced to a point where we're able to build much more quickly with smaller teams. I believe that it will allow us to apply, have new challenges that are solved by software that weren't really viable before.
Yep.
And so, when I say build as strategy, I'm kind of hitting at that, which is build is the strategy, to be honest. A lot of the strategic thinking was an effort to make sure we were correct before we started building.
Right.
Because building was expensive, right? And so it's like that measure twice and cut once perspective. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to minimize the work of great strategists, but a lot of the strategy work, I believe, from my vantage point, was meant to do that. Let's be really sure before we go down a 6 to 12 month timeline and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars building. We should be very, very confident in that what we're building is going to solve this problem that we have. So I am not trying to say that we do not think strategically, but I'm saying, can we use a build muscle or a build function to help us get learnings quicker and then be able to innovate and to pivot very, very quickly once we understand that more. So, it's can the prototype be the strategy conversation? Can we just jump to that?
Right.
So I hope that's clear, right? I think strategy decks are like hypothesis, or hypotheses. But working software is really evidence. And so how do we work with real evidence instead of conjecture, I'd say.
Yeah, no, and one way where we can see this in action is how long did it take for a product manager to build requirements before going to the software development team in the past? And now what we're seeing is they are doing the prototypes themselves and just showing it to the team and go okay, this is what I built. Now make something nice and more reliable out of this, right?
Yeah, exactly. And they're able to test their ideas much more quickly without involving an engineer to come in and build something for them. And I see a lot of product professionals who are really excited about this new era of like they can get really a lot further down the road before they have to engage engineering. And so, I see these walls collapsing between disciplines a lot, and I think we're
Yeah.
still figuring it out where those new lines may or may not be drawn, to be honest, right? So, like, I don't think that that has really been settled yet, but it is interesting how a product person can get much further and get something that's working right away, get it in front of users, take it pretty far down that path. And like I said before, get that evidence out there and, and really learn from that, and I have said throughout my 20 plus year career, how quickly can we get to be building the thing, right? Let's
Right.
just start building it now. And I think finally that is the promise of AI augmented development practices. So I feel that we're finally able to pay off on something that I've always been trying to do, which is like, can we just get to building it and stop talking about it and get
Yeah,
building
yeah,
it?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because like I always say, it's like even when you launch it, the launch is not the end; it's the beginning, right? So we spend all this time building this stuff, and then we're like, cool, we're done. And it's like, actually, no, we're just getting started. So let's get it out in the hands of users, and then we can really make it the best it can be.
So AI is really changing the game, but what do you think is the non-obvious shift many leaders are missing about AI right now?
Yeah, I think that the biggest shift is the way I look at it. I mean, there's a lot of shifts happening. Let me be honest here, but one of those shifts are um, what I refer to as the fact that the cost of knowledge work has collapsed,
Yep.
but nobody has really repriced that yet. And right, so in any situation where I have to try to extract information or context or the knowledge part of it, um, I basically describe it as the difference between the knowing and deciding, right? So knowing and deciding. So if I want to know something, AI has really collapsed that effort down to near nothing, to be
Yep.
honest. I'll give you an example. Like what we've done at FM is really spend a lot of time documenting who we are as a company, what we do, what we believe, what our what our differentiators are, all those things. We've built a knowledge base of our company, and we've built tooling on top of that with AI, and we've integrated with various systems that we use every day. All of that to not build like this beautiful machine or a system, but to basically give all the context we need to a large language model so that when I have to understand where we are in a project, I just ask the system and it just tells me instantly at a much higher degree of quality. So that knowledge effort, which would require me in the old days to like send like three or four different Slack messages or go review meeting notes if we had meeting notes, and it would take maybe half an hour to a couple of hours to like all day to figure out what that is. And now it's instant because we've done the work to connect everything and provide the context and all that stuff. So that's the work of knowing, the work of deciding, which is the work of like judgment. It's the work of making a decision when you don't have all the data. It's about accountability. All of those things are extremely human
Yeah.
and are not really being delivered from AI. And so I think that delineation between the work of knowing and the work of deciding is important because not only do you put everyone in the right corner, whether you're AI or a human, understand what is my role here as a human, I need to be accountable. So I'm not going to just phone it in with an AI driven answer because whatever I deliver to you, Mateo, is me saying that this can be done or we're doing X, Y, and Z. And when it goes wrong, you come to me about that. You don't go to the large language model,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that's I think this big shift that I think is not really obvious to a lot of people. They're thinking of AI as just a kind of a I mean, I call it a tool every day. I mean, so this is not bad. It is a tool, but it's not this blunt force object. I think we can do so many amazing things with this tool. I look at it more like it's a new element on the periodic table. It's like we've
Right.
discovered
Right.
something brand new, right? That didn't exist before. They can do all kinds of new things. So yeah,
So is decision making the new bottleneck, and what is included in that, right? Because I think you said something very nice there about where's the human in all of this, and
yeah,
some stuff that is not going away, and that judgment. There's the strategy right there in making the decisions, right? And you have a prototype, but now you need to
yeah.
start making decisions. Is that the new bottleneck, and is that what we have not been able to put a finger on and a price on yet?
Yeah, I think that's what's kind of happening, which is um, we're moving upstream in the bottleneck because the bottleneck is not engineering before, like we've already said. Um, it's not instant, but it's a fraction of the time that it took before to build this stuff. So that's no longer the bottleneck. Um, I've had, in the course of building software for clients, I've been on calls where we talk about issues or refinements that we have to make based on, let's say, a demo with the client. And in real time, the engineer is fixing it. And by the time we get off the call, we're almost done fixing it, right?
Right,
So it's like
right.
it's that quick. And so the constraint really moves upstream. So engineering is not the bottleneck anymore. Kind of, the product thinking matters really more than ever, I would say, right? So defining what we're going to build is now, um, you know, much more important than how we're going to build it. And so, and I wrote an article about this, which is like the idea of taste, of restraint, restraining ourselves, because I've seen people in this kind of over exuberance just build, 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 and build all kinds of features. And I'm like, actually, my instinct is actually, let's have some restraint. Let's build truly useful software. And a lot of what's making things useful is constraining the options and the choices for the user. You give them too many options, they get kind of paralyzed.
Yeah.
So that idea of taste and judgment and product thinking mindsets, user first mentalities, which are not new concepts, by the way, but they just become so much more important. And I don't think that bottleneck will be changed that much by AI. Now, I mean, certainly every aspect of a knowledge worker's job is being impacted by AI. I totally believe that to be true.
Yep.
But I still think that like coming together as a product organization and really understanding, how we're going to make decisions upstream is really, really important, right? Because it's like if we can build in like 6 weeks where we normally was 6 months, um, that's great. But sometimes the client's internal processes take 6 weeks just to get through the organization,
Yep. Yep. Yep.
and that hasn't changed, right? And so these bottlenecks, I believe, are moving more upstream because of this kind of impact of AI to engineering.
So deciding what to build is more important than how to build it.
Yeah.
Now, where does that come from, right? Where does that judgment and taste come from? Is that purely experience? Is that a certain qualified experience for you, Brian? When you look at great decision makers,
Yeah.
right? How do they get there?
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of it is experience. I have to constantly remind myself um, that a lot of my hard like won kind of wisdom or whatever you want to call it. Took years and years and years, and a lot of seeing things go wrong and correcting. And I have to constantly recalibrate and remind myself that fact because that is not trivial.
Yeah.
And that is a very worthy or valuable um, attribute to have for anyone. So I do think experience of being able to make these decisions is really important. Um, I mean, and at the same time, nothing is as valuable as seeing a user work with software and how they work, how the software either solves their problem or is more of a headache than the problem was.
Mm.
And so, yes, judgment's important, experiences and judgment, but also getting things in the hands of users is as important as ever, I would say. Um, so yeah, so I think that judgment, if I had to pick one, I mean, it is experience goes a long way towards being able to make the right decisions in some of these very chaotic kind of environments, I'd say.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
speaking about experience, you worked across engineering, UX, product. You've seen it all,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Um, and we were just hinting at this a little bit before, but do you think these are converging right now, or is it kind of AI exposing that they should have always been sort of together? What are your thoughts there?
It absolutely converging without a doubt. And I mentioned it earlier, I think the silos are breaking down. The handoffs are completely going away in some instances. We have, on a recent engagement with a client, process was changing so drastically that the designer just skipped Figma and went straight into working within the code with the engineer, right? So we're experimenting, we're playing with new processes. I believe Agile is going to be dead because of this.
Right.
I think it's this assembly line approach that was built on the old world, and the new world doesn't really have much of a need for that, I don't think. Um, I think process is important, but I really feel that we need a new process, right? And also going back to the different roles, really the roles do not converge. Someone who's a product strategist, a product manager, is a discrete function and a role on a team. UX is a discrete role, and someone should care about the UX. Engineering should be a discrete role, I think. So the roles did not converge, but the walls between them basically collapsed. And so, like I said before, I love that now we can get to building much quicker, but I also love that we're working in the same rooms a lot of the time, whether they're virtual rooms or in person. And that's when the best ideas come, right? I don't want anything to ever be all in the engineering's hands, all in product or UX's hands. I think the best work comes out of us collaborating, us pushing each other in different directions, us saying, advocating for a user or advocating for, um, a strategic, you know, initiative, whatever that might be, right? The best work comes out of friction, conflict, pushing each other to do the best work that we can do. And so I want everyone to come together. And so I welcome these converging kind of the converging atmosphere that we find ourselves in. And once again, it's not solved. It's still, still very, very fluid. Everyone is navigating this world. And I think we will for a little while here as
Oh
we
yeah.
learn how to deal with this new tool.
So waterfall. Lots of planning, lots of strategy, and then the customer sort of goes away, and there's a whole building, and then the customer comes back and goes like, "What have you built?" Right? And then we went to Agile, and we have sprints, and we have 2 weeks, and we are looking at the backlog, and then we are building, and then we're doing a demo for the customer every 2 weeks, or 1 week, or whatever you want to decide your sprint is going to look like. Um, all of that is changing so much, and like you said, you're building and you're iterating maybe on a daily basis or deciding even in the same meeting. So that goes back to what we were discussing about the bottleneck is now about deciding what to build, and then the customer becomes ever more important as someone that you need to have closer to the software team. Do you think that maybe we are going to enter a phase where for whatever we are building, you really need someone? I mean, the access to the users needs to be even bigger than before, or even on a daily basis. Or am I making sense? I'm
Yeah.
envisioning like I hear you out, and it feels like the next iteration of software engineering really requires the customer to spend more intense periods of time with the software engineering team, because everything is going just faster and it can go like live, and decisions are being made like every
Yeah.
moment of the day.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if I'm hearing you correctly, you're saying basically that the need to get user feedback and get things in front of users is as strong as ever. And maybe this agile process of this, it's funny, we think of agile as being very flexible and fluid. And I mean, there are ceremonies and there's, the idea of an iterative, design development process. I mean, those were good ideas, but like I said before, they're really not holding up to the speed of AI.
Yeah. No.
They're not, and I do think there will become a new process. I think that the tenets of Agile are still there. The principles still hold, right? But we really basically need to rebuild the entire kind of implementation of it.
Yeah.
Um, you know, and um, and so, it does allow us to have smaller teams. I've been with my team spending more time in planning, going back to the strategy idea of like, let's kind of like really talk this out, not in order of like to like make sure that we know exactly what we're going to build, but make sure that we're clear on why we're building it and going back to the what are we building? Why are we building this? What problem does it solve? But maybe, we just start building it and getting, this MVP into a user hands next week.
Yeah.
That's totally within the realm of possibility. Or maybe that stays 100% in the product side as the engineering team is working on architectural and scaling ability and all the kind of the back end, the lower part of the iceberg of,
Yeah.
of work that has to be done. Um, while the product team is really getting in front of users with truly working software, not like a functioning prototype or whatever, but like they can get it really further. So, getting that in the hands of users is, I think, as valuable as ever, right? So we're getting compressed timelines. Um, I like to say that things are compressing and accelerating, um, but none of this is going down to zero. It doesn't
Yeah.
make sense, right? It's like there's the right calibration of moment of like humans and how fast humans can make decisions, and that's going to be, how we probably where the level is found. But it's a really interesting time. It's moving so quickly and so um, kind of it feels kind of out of control sometimes, to be honest.
It
Right
is intense. It is intense. It's we are doing this recording on a Friday evening, and I'm like exhausted
I
in
know.
a way. And it's just by trying to keep up with everything that's going. I mean, was it Mythos? It was this week, Mythos, right?
Yeah. Well, no, then I just read that they were delaying the release of Mythos.
No, they didn't release it, but the news about Mythos that
Oh
was
yeah.
this
Oh
week,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. Like I think we learned about it last week. I want to
Last
say.
week.
I don't. I
Okay.
don't know. Yeah.
I don't know. It feels
Depending
like
on what newsletter you subscribe to, you might have gotten some early
every
access. Yeah.
every day. This
Yeah.
changes everything. And you go, oh, a new thing I have to keep up with. Let me try. Let me see if I can even try it. Let me try to keep up with all the forums that I'm part of where this is being discussed and everyone is pulling their hair. So it's no,
I know.
it's
Or I'm building systems. Right now, I'm looking at building a system to help me kind of manage the stream of information, right? How do I
right.
process this more quickly and get the signal from the noise? So build your own tooling and workflow. People using like Obsidian to like become a knowledge base for them, and then they have intake and
Yeah.
and synthesis, kind of agents that run. So Yeah, it definitely feel it's funny. I mean, I think it was like 4 or 5 years ago, I was talking to a colleague and I was like, everything just feels kind of too stable right now. I was like, there's no excitement. I remember like
You,
back in like my earlier career, it was just felt like things were changing all the time with like the early web or social or whatever it might have been. It was felt very alive. And I was like, it feels kind of dead these days. And then now I'm like, kind of like, well, so you shouldn't have said that, Brian, because now it's completely exploded in change and the unknown and all that stuff. It's a real crazy time.
it is.
Yeah.
Um, Now I want to go back to the experience thing, right? And you have over, you know, 20 plus years of experience,
Yeah.
and you've done a lot, and but you garnered that experience sort of in a different time. And I feel similar to you in that way, right?
Yeah.
When I look at younger generations, I'm like, okay, they're not going to be doing the same kind of work that we did. We were like the Karate Kid guy, like waxing and pulling, doing that repetitive stuff, and then we learn, and then we did different. It's different
Yeah.
for new generations, right? So when you think about them, what do you think? What's your advice for younger generations that are just now getting into technology and software engineering? How do you think about that?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of talk about, oh, we don't really need juniors anymore, or stuff like that. I don't believe in a lot of that. People will still learn the skills on the job. And even like all of the hype you read about AI induced layoffs and stuff like that. Like I take a lot of that with a grain of salt because I do think that the truth is a lot more gray area than that black and white. Oh, the AI took all the jobs. I really don't think that's happening. But there is a new generation that's coming online, whether they're studying computer science right now or whether they're more on the design or product side. And they're entering a world that's very uncertain right now. And I feel the uncertainty as a gray elder. um, and and so, in some ways, my advice is the same as it's, always been, right? Um, you know, just I'm self-taught. I don't have a computer science degree. I was just interested in it. I have a journalism degree. I'm a musician, as so are you. um, and I kind of backed my way into this industry, and I am completely self-taught. At this point, I have a computer science degree with everything I've been exposed to throughout my career. It was funny early on in my career, my wife, because she is not a technologist, and she's like, and so her eyes just glaze over instantly, and she's like, "How did you learn this?" And I said, "Because I was interested." That was it. That is the answer, right? And so for the younger generation, I still believe that that's enough. If you're interested in it, you will dig in and learn these tools. You may not be learning coding languages anymore. You just might not. It might not, and that abstraction layer may have already risen, right? Where I don't care
Right.
whether it's type. I mean, we have a project right now where we're inheriting a mobile app code base that was written about 5 years ago with like a .NET API,
Mm.
and we're like, we're gonna rewrite it. We're gonna rewrite the whole thing in like a week.
Yeah.
You can refactor it. So like the underlying language is becoming almost not irrelevant, but just kind of like an implementation detail, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, so like, I don't know what they're going to be learning, but just dig in, peel back the onion of, well, I don't know what that is. What is that? Let me just understand what that is. Um, Build things, ship things, see things go wrong. If you're interested in this, you will, I think, naturally learn what you have to learn. You know, it's interesting time for like academia and education, though, I would say. If I was a computer science professor, I would be really struggling on what to teach people
Yeah.
these days.
Yep.
Um, but there is nothing wrong with understanding the fundamentals of software and systems and architecture and databases and all the things that are involved in building, high quality products, right? So, and I think that, ultimately AI is an amplifier of your skills,
Yeah.
you know, and so focus on the core skills, understand what that is you're building, understand how it works, peel back the onion so you can get more and more um, knowledgeable about the systems that you're building, how everything works, and then AI will just accelerate that.
Yeah.
Um, but if you don't know those fundamentals, AI will accelerate you towards a dead end because it will eventually become more than you can understand, and that's when you like lose the plot, right? So, you'll find that balance, I think, naturally there. So I hope that's not a non-answer, but I
It
think
is
it's
an
like,
answer. It is an answer.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
about curiosity, interest, and I think the defining theme of this era is get your hands dirty and start playing with whatever you're. I mean, it's in front of you. Use it and
yeah.
learn by using it. Right?
Yeah, and I'm and on the other side of the divide or whatever you want to call it, you've got the juniors and you have the seniors like myself and others who have been around. I mean, it's really cool to watch my contemporaries get really re-energized in building again.
Yeah.
I've got so many friends who are just building all kinds of stuff. Just like, oh my God, Brian, it's amazing what I can build in a weekend. And this project, I was on a call with someone today. He was like, I've been working on this project off and on for 6 years, and I'm about to ship it
Yeah.
because I finally got past that inertia and got through to the other side and got it live. So the people of my generation are really enthusiastic, and I would say getting more re-engaged with building and shipping, which is what I think all we wanted to do anyway, right?
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
lot of us, grew up in seniority, became like CTOs and VPs and all that stuff, and that takes you away from the code and takes you away from what truly got you excited to begin with. So your career, as you rise up in the ranks, it becomes less interesting. I'll just say it that way, right? You're just dealing in emails all day long, and so being able to jump back down to code. I mean, I'm building things right now that I wouldn't have taken on because could I have built it? Yes, but it would take me like 6 months to pull together the time to do it.
Yeah.
And now I can do it. I built something in a weekend and got it live and got it out of my system. Okay, cool. I did it. I did that.
Right.
Um, and I just did it because it was fun. Not gonna make money on it, but it's just like it's fun. And so like I'm saying, on the other side of that the younger generation, you get the older generation, um, and um, and I think we're really enthusiastic on this side. I think as you're coming into this, just stay curious, stay uncomfortable, push yourself out of your comfort zone, and you will learn. And that's it. I mean, I think the people that are really struggling right now, though, are the people that fell in love with the code.
Right.
That became their self-worth, how good they were at coding. That is a really sore spot to be in right now,
Yeah.
because it's just like this thing is better than me at coding.
Yep.
And so if I'm too caught up in that, and that is my kind of identity is how good a coder, and it's sad because it is a amazing skill to be a strong software engineer. Um, but if that's what all you want to do is write lines of code, you're going to be really upset. If you're always, code is a means to an end. I want to build working software. That was
Yep.
what I always focused on. That's why I was involved and excited about UX and design and just user interfaces and just building high quality software for users. I'm ecstatic, but I can see how if you're just focused on how intelligent your code is or how elegant or um, innovative your code is, that's a tough spot to be in right now. I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
Brian, great way to end this conversation. For now, I appreciate your time. Appreciate you sharing your experience, your passion, and your knowledge with us. And I hope that we get to stay in touch and maybe
Yeah.
do this again in the future.
Yeah. Great to see you, Mateo. Thanks for having me.